Hello, everyone. Adrian Vincent here with Forward Movement Ministries. Listen, it's been a minute since we had an opportunity to dwell and come together as a community, but I sure am glad to see you. And as a matter of fact, right now, go ahead and share this video, whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you're watching on Facebook Live. Go ahead. We like to invite others to get a hold of this good information and be a part of our community discussions. So, right now, go ahead and share this live stream session. Facebook, YouTube, your community. Let's go. Also, tell us where you're watching from right now. Where are you? We're all over the world. We are such an international community. Are you in Spain right now? Are you in Japan right now? Are you in California, Florida? Or maybe my hometown, New York. I don't know. Tell us where you're from. You never know. You may be watching from the same place someone else is watching right now. Well, today I'm super excited about the conversation that we're going to have, this vital conversation. But before we get started, we want to remind you about the Greater Force Than Failure journal that we have as a community. If you don't have it, we want to invite you to go on Amazon right now and go ahead and not subscribe, but go ahead and get your copy. You want to be able to have this so that every day you literally have a tool in your hand that you can use to keep yourself focused and encouraged. Before we get started with our session, we want to go ahead and remind ourselves of our community affirmation. Our community affirmation comes from our journal. It's on page 6. Why don't you go ahead and say this community conversation with me? I am. Oh, my screen is kind of interrupting me at the moment. So just give me one moment. All right. I am average or mediocre is not where I dwell. I am a water walker created in God's image to shine brightly to the world. My God given force of faith will remove me out of my comfort zone. This is my journey and I am ready. That's right. Are you ready? Listen, I sure am. Well, today we're going to go ahead and have an amazing community conversation with our special guest. Our special guest is Miss Valerie Tucciarone. And I want to invite her to the screen right now. Valerie, how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm in sunny Florida, so I don't know if anybody else is chiming in from Florida, but I am happy to not have any snow down here. Nice warm
Oh,
October.
that is amazing. Listen, shout out to Florida. If you're from Florida, go ahead and say, I'm in Florida. Go ahead and let Valerie know. But listen, community, I've had the opportunity to meet Valerie virtually over the years. We both serve in the Navy, and she has been such an amazing example when we talk about fitness and nutrition. Shortly, she's going to go ahead and share her journey, but we have been able to watch her through the years really take hold of her own health journey and move herself to a place now where she's in fitness competitions and she's training others and she's literally helping others to rebuild their lives. And so I'm actually thrilled, Valerie, that you're joining us today. Valerie, tell us a little bit about how did you get to that place where you said enough is enough? It's time for me to really take control of my health journey.
Yes, yes. I have a very, and some people don't have a very defining moment. I had a very defining moment. For me, I was an athlete, as a kid, and going into my adult life in my college years. I had a weightlifting accident a month out from nationals in my senior year in collegiate powerlifting. So I have, and I'll dive into it a little bit more later, right? But I have some injuries and some things that led to a lot of weight gain. Now I'm only 5'3" and shrinking because I have some skeletal issues in my spine. So it's funny I say that I'm shrinking, funny but not funny, right? And 40 pounds added to a 5'3", 5'2" frame is quite a bit of weight. And if you're not sure how much that is, right, if you were to go to the gym and pick out a 40-pound dumbbell and try to pick that up and carry it around with you all day, that's a lot of extra stress that you're putting on your body, physiological stress.
Sure is.
and then mental and emotional stress, and it takes a toll on you. So for me, that defining moment is that weight was gradually put on. Not only did it take a toll on my body, but emotionally too. I didn't like how I looked. I didn't like how I felt. And having been someone that was in competitive athletics, lost my body, lost the ability to compete in a sport that I loved.
Mm,
And in the Navy, and you're familiar with this, and not necessarily everybody is, but we have something called a PRT. And part of that physical readiness test is weighing in, and you have to meet certain height and weight standards. And I remember for the first time in my life, I was somebody that never paid attention to that number because I could always weigh in, and whatever I weighed, I knew it was going to be under. And I remember for the first time, I went to go weigh in, and
mm,
they said, you have to get taped, which
mm,
means that they had to put a tape measure around my waist, around my belly button, and make sure that it was under a certain number so that I could pass.
mhm. Yeah.
Essentially telling me, you are considered overweight, and we have to measure you to make sure that you're within standards for the military.
Yes.
And that hit me very, very hard. That was kind of a wake up call for me. Uh,
Mm,
and I knew that it wasn't just about the weight, right? It was about, I knew that I didn't feel healthy. Things did not feel right.
mhm.
Um, and there's all kinds of different ways that manifests itself. For some people it's hormones, for some people it's emotional, all kinds of different things. But that really was the defining moment for me, where I thought, I'm at my heaviest. I got to, I want to say, about 162 and a half pounds, I think, was my heaviest weight.
Mhm.
And again, 5'2", that's a lot.
Yeah, and I love your journey right now because I think that it's one that many women can relate to, men and women. But
Mhm.
you touched on something, the hormones, right? As we get older, your body begins to change hormonally, and it affects your emotions, it affects your cravings, it affects your mental mindset. That mental mindset is so important. And you said something that's key as well, that I think, I know, at least I can relate to, that feeling of just not being comfortable in your own skin, being
Yes.
not being happy about the way you look. I think about times where I did walk out of the door not happy with the way I look. It affected how I interacted with the world.
Yep.
I
100%.
didn't show up confident. you
Hmm.
know it was like, let me just see how I can be here but be invisible, how I can be here and not, and hopefully nobody's looking at my face, or nobody's looking at, this bulge in my stomach, or how
Hmm.
my clothes is fitting. And I believe that, for all of us, we're called every day to live life on purpose. And a
Yes.
large part of that is being able to show up in the world as the true representative of ourselves.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
100%. I believe that, I like to think of myself as a pretty caring, nurturing person. And I'm sure that a lot of people that are in this community, right? That's
Hmm.
part of being in this community, is being someone who is a giver, and not a taker. And when you are somebody who is that type of person, has that mindset, sometimes you just give yourself the leftovers. But the
Hmm.
problem is, if you are not taking care of yourself, and you are distracted by your own problems and your own struggles, you cannot take care of anybody else if you're distracted by the issues that you have going on. And so there's a lot of different ways to tackle that. And fitness is just one of those pillars.
Absolutely. And those of you who are watching right now, I want to invite you to go ahead in the comment section and just write hashtag take care of myself.
Hmm.
This is so important that you make that commitment even right now while you're watching this session, that enough is enough. Hashtag take care of myself. And begin to define what that looks like and what that means. Like, for some of us, you might be like me, take care of myself. We got to make sure that we have some water in our hands and start drinking more water. For some of us, it is a diet change. Right now, I'm sitting here. We have a green smoothie that we made, right? So I can get my vegetables in. But taking care of yourself, getting some more sleep, And Valerie's going to talk to us. We're going to give her some time right now to just talk to us about some of these important conversations that we should be having with ourselves. She's going to talk to us a little bit about her journey, and I know that you're going to be inspired. So, Valerie, thanks so much. We'll see you in a few minutes. You'll see me again shortly, but thank you for talking to our community today.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to be able to chat with all of you. Thank you, Adrienne, so much for having me on. I'm very, very passionate about this topic, as she knows, and hopefully you all will see as well. So I served active duty Navy for I want to say about a decade. It's been about 10 years now. I'm no longer active duty. I'm now a reservist, and I started my fitness business while I was active duty, actually. And I've now transitioned to it pretty much full time. Currently pursuing my master's in dietetics, although my degree is in systems engineering. So I kind of went the opposite way on that one. But it gives me a unique perspective in that, I very much am an analyzer. I like the numbers. I like data. I don't like to make emotional decisions when it comes around your health. And it's just so important that this is just my perspective, right? It's so important that you get as many data points as possible to help prevent you from making emotional decisions. So for me, a little bit about me, right? I know that you guys are looking at my neck and you're thinking like, okay, maybe she looks a little bit lean, right? But this is what I was before, right? And when I say before, I'm not talking that long ago, people, because this right here on the left was me in November of 2021. And that photo, so this was shortly after that whole waist measurement debacle that I told you about. And you can see by the look on my face, my puffy face, I might add, that I was not happy to take this photo. But I did it not to be accountable to anybody else, but because taking that photo was me putting my foot down and saying enough is enough. Okay. So if you are in that position, okay, if you are a hashtag enough is enough person, I really, really strongly encourage you, take that photo today. Okay. That is the only action you need to take today, but you need to take some action. Okay. You need to put one foot in the right direction. Okay. One toe in the right direction, if that's all it is. But you can't have an after photo if you don't have a before photo. Okay. You don't have to show it to anybody. You can squirrel it away and hide it and not look at it until 6 months later, because you know what the time difference was between these two photos for me? 6 months. I lost all that weight in 6 months because I put my foot down. And I had been on this weight loss roller coaster because my injury was actually back in 2014. So I had been heavier for quite a while before I finally put my foot down and just lost it all in 6 months. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit, how that happened. So just some examples of some things that I've done, competitive athletics. And I just share this because a lot of people are more on the cardiovascular side or more on the strength training side. I've done a little bit of both. In high school, I was in swimming, soccer, cross country. I actually was recruited at the collegiate level for cross country. And I ended up captain of the powerlifting team at the collegiate level. And so that was, I got hurt after doing that for 4 years. I had one bad day. It was a freak accident. And so I have bone spurs in my neck and my back. So in my cervical and lumbar spine, multi-level disc issues, tendonitis in my elbow. My knees are busted up because I used to be a cross-country runner, and I could keep going. But the point is I have a lot of boo-boos. And I'm very transparent about that with people, because if there's hope for me, there's hope for you. Okay. It's just about how creative you need to get in order to work around all those boo-boos, because we all have them. And as we get older, it's slower recovery time also. So that's a little bit of my competitive athletic background. I now compete in bodybuilding in the NPC. And the NPC is a specific federation that is not drug tested. I, however, am a natural athlete. And that's because I wanted to challenge myself, right? Because if I was going to do this, I was going to go all the way. So I picked the most competitive federation of athletes that are not drug tested as a natural athlete. So I have nothing against people that do it, right? And, I'm a big fan of you do you, but, I really wanted to push myself a little bit further. And so that may not be right. You may have no desire to get into bodybuilding, right? You may want to just be able to say, I want to be able to put on a form-fitting top and not be self-conscious again. It may be, after I had kids, I want to try to not feel self-conscious about diastasis recti. I want to be able to run a 5K, whatever it is. It all starts with putting your foot down and just taking a photo, a snapshot, and it can be a figurative photo. It doesn't have to be an actual photo. It can be a snapshot of your life, right? The things that you want to change, step one is identifying them. So my education and background, I talked a little bit on the collegiate side, what I've done as far as degrees and things like that. I am an ACE certified personal trainer. I've got some other specialties as far as nutrition. I'm a spin instructor. I work with TRX. I do a lot of different things. The only thing I don't do is Zumba, because if you want me teaching Zumba, you're getting deep in the bench. So I always joke that. So I don't know tell me what your format is. I'd love to see if you're a hashtag Zumba person, if you're a TRX fan, or if you're a spinner like me. I'd love to see in the comments what you all like to do. It might just be going for walks and family walks. So for me, going from what I call fit to fat to fit again, right? I was an athlete. I gained all that weight. And this conversation is not going to be so much how I went from fit to fat. It's going to be how I went from fat to fit again. So I'm going to go through that a little bit, because I think there's a lot of things that we all fall into the trap of, myself included sometimes. And I want to talk through some of the things that you don't have to pay anyone, a personal trainer, to figure this stuff out. These are very, very easy things that you can do yourself without anyone else, simply by putting your foot down. Okay. And I want to talk first about why we fail. And that really is the roller coaster. So here's what happens, right? I'm sure all of you have tried putting your foot down at some point before and said enough is enough. And if you maybe didn't get to where you wanted to go, I want to talk through why that probably happened. And that's what I call the roller coaster. So what we do is we get very, very motivated, right? Something happens. In my life, it was that tape measurement. For you, it could have been attending a wedding and the dress that you bought to go to that wedding no longer fit anymore. And so now you're a bridesmaid, and now you have this dress that you feel very uncomfortable in at an event that's supposed to be a celebration and a positive thing. And now you have negative emotions around it. Okay. That's just one example. We all have our reasons and our whys, but we have an event like that that motivates us to change. And so what happens? For most of us, we know most of the right things to do. And so we say, I'm going to do them all, and I'm going to get there to success as fast as possible. And that is too much. We try to do all the right things all at once. And so we go from 0 to 60, right? So I'm going to, I'm a nerd, right? Because I already told you my degree is in engineering. So I want you to think about this as a wave, okay? So I do all the right things, right? And I'm moving in the right direction really, really, really fast. And I say, whew, that was a lot. I need to back off and take a break. So we back off, right? Maybe we say, I need a few days off from the gym, or I need a break from this diet because this is too restrictive. And then what happens? Then we move a little bit in the opposite direction. And then we say, okay, I have not been good. I need to get back on track. And then we do all the right things again. And so we end up doing this roller coaster, this wave. And the problem is the average of that over time is what? Tell me in the comments what it is. It's 0, right? It adds up to nothing. So now you're doing all this work really, really, really hard to add up to 0 progress. And then what happens? You do that enough times of this wave and you say, okay, well, I guess it's just not meant to be for me, and I'm just going to be stuck this way forever. So instead, right, you need to give yourself grace. Okay. This is part of why we fail. And you need to do a little bit less. You need to do a little bit less moving in the right direction. You shouldn't be sprinting in the right direction as fast as possible so that you get winded and you need to take a break. You need to start walking in the right direction. Heck, it might even be crawling in the right direction. But as long as it's in the right direction, it doesn't matter how fast you go. It just matters that you're moving the right way. Even if you're walking backwards in the right direction, okay? It really doesn't matter. So that's step one, right? Is move in the right direction. You can decide how fast you're going to go later, but just get some momentum moving in the right direction through small wins. Okay. And I love, Adrian, that you pulled up your water bottle, because that is exactly what I recommend to most people that I work with to start out. Usually people have a hard time with the diet, or they have a hard time with the exercise. A lot of people have a hard time with both, but usually one is tougher than the other one. And so what I like to start off with most people is setting a water goal. Okay. Because it's going to help tackle both of those things. All right. If you are not consuming enough water, it's going to negatively impact your exercise routine. It's going to impact your recovery and how much you can do. You're not going to feel as great. You're going to lose energy. And at the same time, if you are having troubles on the diet side, drinking more water is going to help fill you up. So rather than focusing on taking food away, we focus on adding water in. And you will naturally start to eat fewer calories, actually. So it's going to start giving you these small daily wins by doing something as simple as adding in water intake. So I'd like to know who has tried this before. How much water are you drinking? Are you somebody that tracks water? I want to know what your thoughts are around water, how much you need. I want to know if anybody has heard this before. I'm sure you guys have, that water is going to be a big part of this. But that's one example of step one. Okay, so you don't have to start there. You can start all kinds of places, but the key is to identify where you are at first. Okay, so for me, my identification was taking that photo, that very unpleasant photo. Okay, I already told you identification might look like something else for you. It might be the fact that you get winded going up one flight of stairs. It might be that you can't watch the grandkids without getting tired. Okay. Whatever it is, yes, move in the right direction. So identify that however you feel that you need to make progress in. Okay. So when you're putting your foot down, what are you putting your foot down about? And then you need to acknowledge, what are the things that I am doing that are causing me to be stuck here? Okay. So, for example, let's focus on the nutrition side for a second. If you know, right, in the back of your mind, you're like, I know that I'm eating too much. Okay. Rather than jump straight from, okay, identify that I'm eating too much, to I'm going to start eating less. There actually is a step in between there. And that's acknowledging what you're eating. So you can't eat less without figuring how much you're eating first. Okay. So that's how you start taking baby steps in the right direction. Because if I know, let's say I'm eating 2,000 calories a day and I'm gaining weight, rather than jump straight to 1,500 calories, maybe I just start with eating 1,900. Okay. And I win for 3 weeks. And then I say, I'm ready for 1,800. I can do this. Because what happens if you go straight to 1,500? You're taking out 25% of what you've been used to eating, and that's unreasonable to ask of yourself. Okay, so that's where we get into setting goals that make sense. All right, but first you have to identify where you're at so that you can actually come up with a plan that's going to be reasonable to ask of yourself. Okay, so that's one example of how on the diet side, you can just start moving in the right direction with baby steps and start incrementally decreasing things. Okay, when you've been winning on a daily basis or you hit a wall, is the time to then take another step and make another change in the right direction. Okay, and I'm very open about sharing this, when I first started my journey of losing that 40 plus pounds, I was still doing Moe's Mondays. And for those of you that don't know what Moe's Mondays is, I think everybody knows what Chipotle is. Okay. Moe's is like a Chipotle. Every Monday they do a burrito special. And my friends, was taking advantage of Moe's Monday every week until I hit a wall and I stopped making progress. And then I said, okay, it's time to get rid of Moe's Mondays. But by that point, I was ready to make that change. See, if I had gotten rid of Moe's Mondays right from day one, I probably would have lasted 3 weeks and then I would have caved and then, gone binge eating. But by the time that I was ready to take that extra step and finally eliminate the Moe's Mondays, right? And for you, it might not be Moe's Mondays. Maybe it's Taco Tuesdays, whatever it is for you, right? When you get to that point and you hit that wall and you stop making progress, you've already come so far that you say, I will not let this defeat me. And then you are ready to take that extra step in the right direction. Okay. And that really leads to setting those SMART goals. I'm not going to go over SMART goals. I think we've all heard the acronym SMART goals before. Okay. Specific, measurable, all that. But it really comes down to you asking yourself what is reasonable. So I talked about the nutrition side. Let's talk about the exercise side a little bit. If you are not working out at all right now, that's okay. That's all right. That's where you are. Okay. It's about identifying that, and you shouldn't feel bad about where you're at. You should feel excited to move in the right direction. But you also have to use that to ask yourself reasonable things. So if you are not working out one day a week, you shouldn't say, all right, next week I'm going to start working out 5 days a week. That's unreasonable to ask yourself. And that's going to put you back on that roller coaster that I just said we shouldn't be on. Okay. So if you say, right, if I was to ask you, and I always ask my clients this that I work with, right, how many days a week do you want to exercise? And if they tell me, oh, I don't know, I could do 3 or 4. I say, okay, 3. And they say, well, I think I could do 4. I say, yeah, but there's some psychology behind this, because I would rather us plan for 3, and every time you hit 4, you feel great. If we plan for 4, what happens when you hit 3? You feel bad about hitting 3 because you missed a day. And you shouldn't feel bad about doing 3 days a week when you haven't been doing any at all. That is a big step in the right direction. So you have to ask yourself, once again, right, reasonable things. So what are some reasonable things that you can ask of yourself? Okay. If you're comfortable sharing, I'd love to see what things you feel are reasonable to ask yourself, and baby things to put yourself in the right direction. And maybe you have some ideas that's going to help somebody else. And we are a community, so please share those things and give each other some great ideas. Okay. So I talked a lot about a lot of different things as far as the roller coaster and, how we kind of get off of that. The big thing, right? If you remember nothing else from this, is take small steps in the right direction. It does not matter how big those steps are. What matters is that they're in the right direction. And you're going to fail. You will fail sometimes, and that's okay. The goal is to just win more days than you fail. But if you have these huge, enormous mountains to climb that you set yourself up for on a daily basis, how many wins versus how many failures are you going to get? You can't climb a mountain every single day, okay? But you can get over a molehill every day, and then maybe you miss one every once in a while. So I hope that helps. I would love to hear any more questions. I have some different ways that you can connect with me here. So that's my email address there. I own the fitness forum. So just to talk a little bit about, sort of the different ways that you can interact with me. So the fitness forum is my fitness coaching site. I do work with people around the world and tailor all of these solutions to meet you where you're at. So Val Tucci is my personal Instagram. If you shoot me a message there, I'm very good at responding to people through Instagram and through Facebook. If you have a quick question, I'm happy to answer it. Neptus Nutrition is my supplement line. And before you go to that website, right, they are called supplements. They're not replacements. Okay. So I own a supplement line, and I don't push supplements on people, because you should try to get everything that you can through whole food and through healthy lifestyle changes. Okay. But the truth is, we can develop nutritional deficiencies based on how we eat, based on if we're at a calorie deficit and things like that. So you will notice my line does not include a bunch of pre-workouts and creatine and all these crazy things. Right now, I use some of that stuff, right? But actually not that often, because the health is number one, right? For me, fitness is not about necessarily being the, person that's got the biggest biceps in the room or is the strongest person. It's about prioritizing my health, which is going to positively impact all the other areas of my life. Okay. So if you are someone that is interested in that also, you can check that out. I do occasionally write articles on that blog. So some people have asked me about, what are all of these different things that I keep finding in sleep aids? So I wrote an article about it. Okay. If you have questions about anything that's, on the supplement, health, food side, please send me those because I would love to write articles based on what you want to hear about, not just things that I think are cool to talk about. The fitness forum, like I mentioned, is my coaching platform. So that's my actual LLC that I offer personal training and programming through. If you're local, I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. I do in person, but honestly, most of the people that I work with now are remote. And so I do everybody's coaching and nutrition and food there. I do have a couple other different ways that people can interact with me. So you don't have to be in the military to join this free Facebook group. So this is called Nail the PRT, right? So I mentioned that physical readiness test that I took in the military. And so that consists of a 1.5 mile run, a plank, and a push-up portion. And there are alternate cardio options for people that don't run 1.5 miles. And so the reason I bring this up here is because if you are interested in getting in shape, or if you are interested in losing weight, people have to meet height and weight standards. And so there's a lot of things that even if you're not taking a PRT may be applicable to you if you want to join that group. So if you just search Nail the PRT, it will pop up there, and you can interact with me there as well. I love when people post questions in there because I frequently do some lives answering people's questions. I do have a private Facebook community that's called Battle Built Body, and that focuses a little bit more on some of the things that I talked about. I go into some deeper detail on different exercises that people want to address. When people ask me questions about diet, I put examples of my own personal workouts in there. I put examples of my own diet in there so that you can see transparently how I'm eating, how I'm exercising, and then modify things and apply them to your own life. And then I do offer that one-on-one remote coaching, like I mentioned. But honestly, I find that most people don't need that. If you can move in the right direction by just applying these principles, you can get most of the way there by yourself. Okay. But if you feel like you're really struggling, you're not sure where to start, that is something that I offer as well. But Adrian, I'd love to chat with you if you have any other things that you think would be helpful to address, or any questions that gaps maybe that I could help fill. Oh, I can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much for having this conversation with our community. As you were talking, I kept thinking to myself, this phrase "health is wealth." It's really true. And it's about taking time to prioritize that this is what's actually really important. And I had to have some conversations when you talked about setting reasonable goals. I had to have some conversations with myself in terms of, I think that's powerful. A lot of times we set goals and we look at it as in setting like the ultimate goal, as opposed to starting with what's reachable, what's attainable, what will help me to keep building to get there. And so many times we get discouraged because it's like, I say, hey, I want to lose 20 pounds. And if this week I didn't lose anything at all, I'm discouraged, as opposed to being gentle, being patient with myself, and moving forward and giving my body and my mind an opportunity to connect and engage so that we can move forward.
Yes.
So I do want to encourage those of you who are watching right now. She asked us, like, how can you set reasonable goals? Please go ahead and share with us in the chat right now. What are some reasonable goals that you can set, whether it's water, whether it's sleep? A lot of us are anxious and frustrated. We're not ready for the day because we're not getting enough sleep. Or we're laying in the bed and we're laying down, but our minds are not shut off. We're still processing and thinking and trying to plan while we're laying down. So what are some reasonable goals that you can set right now for the next day, for the next 3 days, for the next 7 days, and then you keep building from there? Let's share as a community, because when you share, you will indefinitely help someone else. Valerie, I want to ask you one last question. So as you look at the journey that you have been on, right? You clearly, whether it's in pictures, whether it's the clothes in your closet, whether it's these competitions that you're now in, you clearly can see how you have been able to move forward. Talk to us about, from your perspective, when you have set a reasonable goal and you have met it, what do you do then?
What's the next step? Yeah, I love it. So for me, right, and I'll talk about this a little bit from my bodybuilding perspective, and then I'll talk through it, on a people that don't compete in bodybuilding, perspective, because I think it'll make more sense if I talk through it this way first. So for me personally, um, my first goal, um, for those of you that aren't aware, it is pretty challenging to try to lose fat and also put on muscle at the same time. Our bodies are focused on burning different tissue, right? We're burning tissue essentially when we lose weight. And the goal is that we make sure that what we are burning is fat and not muscle and, skeletal system and everything else, right? We don't want to lose bone mass. We don't want to lose muscle and things like that. And I won't dive into all the things, specifically, but the point is my first goal was to just lose the weight, right? And get back to what was a healthy weight. And so whatever I ended up looking like with whatever muscle mass, I knew I wasn't going to put on any muscle mass on that journey. And I had accepted that. So one of the things that I would say is that when you set those stepwise goals, when you set that first goal, you have to also acknowledge what are the allowances that I'm going to give myself on things that I may lose on this journey. And so for me, right, I knew that I would lose some muscle mass. I knew that there were other things that I was going to have to sacrifice as I was going to reprioritize my life around this goal. And rather than say, I'm going to sacrifice my relationships and time with my family, I made it a point to try to integrate my family into this journey as much as I could, because that was very important to me. So instead of me leaving to go do cardio, I did my best to ask, different people, do you want to go on a walk with me? And then we made it a social thing, right? And then it was me being able to accomplish that social time and that intention with my family, as well as working towards my goal. And I was sure to thank them and let them know you are a part of me moving in this right direction. So I share that to say, when you reach that goal, it's important to then look back and reevaluate those things that you decided you were going to potentially sacrifice and minimize. Because you may find that now that you're on the other side of this goal, your priorities have changed a little bit. Now you're still the same person. Your values probably have not changed, right? But maybe you found when you're reevaluating, right? I've arrived. I'm here. I have met the goal. But maybe you look back and you say, I wish I would have done this a little bit better. I wish I would have integrated my family a little bit more, right? I wish I would have still found a way to spend more time with my spiritual wellness, or I wish I would have found time to integrate, this aspect of my life. And so as you meet those goals, right, and you push that goalpost a little bit further, it's not about trying to push that goalpost necessarily farther and farther and farther, right? Because once you've lost the weight, maybe you don't want to lose more weight. Maybe now it's about how can I maintain this and also improve those other areas that I was blind to on that journey.
I love this. I love this. In the chat right now, go ahead and tell us what are you gleaning from what Valerie is sharing from this community conversation. And as always, Forward Movement community, we don't want to just have this conversation internal. We want to invite you to continue this conversation with someone else in your home, with someone else in your network or in your community. Today, engage with someone about what we're talking about. Matter of fact, share the video and use it as a discussion point. Health is wealth. How can you set reasonable goals? How can you move yourself forward from here to there? And once you've arrived, how can you continue to live life on purpose? That's what we're talking about today. Well, Valerie, we want to thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for the contact information that you shared with us. We are going to put it in the chat, so you can definitely have multiple ways, whether you're watching the video, you come back here and you get it there. But reach out to Valerie. There's multiple ways. She's a wonderful, phenomenal expert and resource for our community. Matter of fact, I have a journal that Valerie has developed. It's called the Naval Planner. And as she mentioned, you don't have to be in the Navy. If you're watching this and you're in the military community, this really is great because there's multiple spaces where you can plan for your days. You can write your reflections. It's really great for us to take time and really process the journey that we're on. So she has spaces here where you can write and you can reflect weekly. She has some spaces here for water tracker. We talked about tracking our water. She has meal planners, right? So this is a great holistic planner called the Naval Planner. And again, if you're not in the military, this is just a really good tool and resource. So definitely go to her website, contact her so that you can get that. I have it and I absolutely love it. Want to remind you as well as our journal, A Greater Force Than Failure. As she was talking today, I was thinking on page 7 of the journal, there's a quote here by Sharon Salzberg, and it says, accept responsibility. Taking responsibility for oneself is by definition an act of kindness. Oh, I love that. We want to invite you to be kind to yourself. Health is wealth. This is a series that we're going to be doing. So I want to invite you to stay tuned to Forward Movement Ministries for the next series the next episode in this series, Health is Wealth. And again, Valerie, thank you so much for joining us today. As always, remember everyone that you are a legacy maker. So continue to move forward and leave a legacy. We'll see you again soon.